Hi, it's Lianne Grove coming to you with The Ambitious Woman, welcoming all the ambitious women out there. So thanks for being here again so that we can meet yet another amazing and ambitious woman and find out her secret strategies and techniques to being able to do it all and thrive and prosper. So that being said, I want to welcome Dr. Holly Woods. Hi, Holly.
Hi, Lianne. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So Dr. Holly Woods earned her PhD in human development and behaviour and participated in 2 decades of research in challenging human and organisational dilemmas. So she has 35 years as a master coach, consultant, mediator, facilitator, teacher and trainer, scientist and navigator of personal and group journeys, doing deep transformational work and mentoring leaders, entrepreneurs, and facilitating social change agents to make a bigger impact on the world through her meaningful work. So she's done a lot, she's studied a lot, and we're going to get so much juicy information from her today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, that's great. So maybe Holly, you can start by telling us a little bit about your journey to where you are today.
Well, as you can probably imagine from that ridiculous bio, that it was a challenging one. And I'll start off in a nutshell. I had a pretty challenging childhood. Probably many of us who were ambitious and on the fast track to do big things in the world probably had some part of our childhood with a parent or more that held us in a from a perspective that we were less than we really were. At least in my own work, I find that most women, especially who feel compelled to do big things and have a lot of ambition, grew up with a limiting belief about themselves. And so there's some part of us that has to prove ourselves in some way. And that certainly was true for me. I didn't feel seen and therefore was always on the go to try to, to be seen by people who were in my life. So started in fairly traditional, grew up in conservative Texas and had a fairly traditional family life and did the academic thing. I actually, 4 college degrees, 2 graduate degrees, and 17 careers later. I'm not going to go through all of that.
So you were definitely out there trying to prove yourself.
Oh my gosh. And I was the ridiculous one who started my doctorate while I was 6 months pregnant. And working full-time, 50 plus hours a week, and had a husband who traveled, so was raising children, going to school, working, and having babies. So I had my 2 babies, and they were children while I completed my doctorate and worked full-time.
Wow.
So needless to say, at some point after that, the PTSD was strong enough that I had to actually slow down. And I think most women who have fairly ambitious careers over the top, like I did anyway, come to realize, the blessing of illness or health issues or something that causes us to stop, because we really have to stop and take into account why we're doing the things that we do. But so I at some point in that time frame, I'd say that was late 30s, early 40s, I did realize that I wasn't doing it quite well enough, and that I could be ambitious and still get a lot done and create lots of things and make big impact in the world without killing myself. So kind of in a nutshell, I could share more detail, but probably that wouldn't be terribly useful.
Well, we'll find out what you've learned from that, and what and how we can, other women can learn from the things that you've learned to be where you are today, to come through all of that and actually have it in place where you love your life and you honor yourself and you're helping a lot of women, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So what of all of that do you find is one of the big drivers to having, you know, found balance and a, you know, happiness in your life?
As I shared, it's a great question. In the collapse, you know, that occurred after I chewed off too much, and had an unsustainable way of being in the world. I really had to step back and say, well, what's priority? Which of these things really must remain in my life? You still has some alignment with who I am, my values, and my purpose. And what are the ways that I can create a lifestyle that sustains me with big energy and big inspiration to accomplish those things? So I began to really ferret out what parts of my life I wanted to keep and what I wanted to relinquish. And in that process, I got really clear about two things. One of them was my purpose, which is the work I do now, helping people find purpose. And in that process of really ascertaining my own vision and purpose for my life, what occurred is that I had to get really still. So I started a pretty deep meditation practice and became much more contemplative, you could say, and designed a life around that focus. So learned that focus of being still enough to hear what was coming in about what my life was supposed to be like became paramount. And in that, I figured out what I'm really here to do and started refocusing my career in that direction, as opposed to other things that people were wanting me to do or telling me I was good at, or, you know, had a previous draw to me that didn't seem to be on purpose. And the second was realizing that the life I wanted to live was as important, you know, the sort of the everyday, how I lived in my life, who I was and how I was as important as the work and and what it was I was going to contribute. And so it wasn't distinct, you know, my personal lifestyle, my relationships, my self-care, my sleeping habits, my exercise, all the things that sustain my body and my spirit and my soul became as important as the work I focused on. They're no longer distinct for me. They're kind of all one package, because I can't actually do the work if I'm not living from a aligned and, you know, spiritual place.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So, you know, and I hear in that, you know, there's a lot of that's about finding your purpose and following your purpose. So tell me about that. How do you find your purpose? I mean, because I know it's a question I used to ask myself, and I know a lot of people ask themselves, first of all, is there a purpose? And well, what's mine? And mine kind of goes, well, I don't know. And it's like, I've just got to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. So there are lots of ways to get some idea about purpose, and the work I do with people generally lasts a few months. So, you know, I can give you some sense of some initial steps. There is definitely one reason that we came here to be on the planet at this time in space. I mean, each of us has what I call an evolutionary genius, the thing we came to do in this lifetime that's usually a result of many lifetimes. So I definitely believe, you know, Holly's cosmology is that there is a soul purpose that we came for. And it's very distinct and nuanced, and you're the only one on the planet that can actually accomplish that particular purpose. And so, you know, there are lots of ways, including directly talking to your soul, which I guide people to do, which is really fun. Like, I'm the most blessed person on the planet to get to do that. But there are lots of other ways. So you can look back over your life and try to remember at different stages of your life, what were the curiosities, you know, the things that like kept you awake at night and got you up in the morning and caused you to be inspired when you saw something. It's like, oh, there's that thing again. And so what are the curiosities or the passions that you had, that you held, you know, childhood and adolescence and adult, and they may vary. You can look at the things that caused your heart to break. and really gave you challenge in life. They're all what I call whispers of purpose. Our soul takes us on this journey, and we don't really know where it's taking us, but it causes us to have these experiences that give us a clue about our purpose. So if you start really documenting all those things, and I actually guide my clients to do this in a very formal way, you can take a look at it and pull out the threads. Another thing you can do is ask your friends or colleagues or family, so what's the thing I do that I can't help but do, in everyday life? Like if I walk in a room and I'm doing this thing, you go, oh, there she is. There's Lianne doing that thing again. That's also a clue. And most of the time we don't even know we're doing that thing because we do it so innately and organically. It just like happens. It's almost like you wear a color, a green light on your head, and there's Holly with the green light.
You don't see the green light because it's just...
Well, you don't. Right. It's hard for us to see. And that's part of why most of us don't live into our purpose, because we can't actually see the thing we are that represents our purpose. And one of the reasons for that is that we haven't actually learned to bless ourselves with our purpose. So if we knew what it was and we could turn it around and bless ourselves, we actually would have much more knowledge and awareness about what that purpose is and how to live into it. There's we call what I call amniotic amnesia. We come into life having forgotten. We come back for this really specific purpose. Our soul brings us here, and we're gonna live into it, and then we forget the minute we come out of the womb. Like, oh, where did it go? I know I had it. And then we get shut down with all the armoring, the ego defensive stuff. So a lot of the work I do is actually not only helping someone clarify what their purpose is, remember who they really are, but also removing the layers of armor that we develop over time that keeps us from being who we are. So we're removing all that we are not, in addition to being more of who we are.
So what do those layers of armor look like? That on silent, but I'm just going to hang up. It's actually my daughter who's in Canada, and it's coming through on my computer because it's FaceTime.
Yeah, that's right. So the layers of armor can be, fears and doubts about moving forward into something that would be high risk. We can fear losing our status quo, leaving status quo and moving into something that has a higher risk. We can have limiting beliefs. We're not good enough. We're not ready enough. We're not worthy enough. We don't see our own value, so we doubt what we can contribute. Even if, have you ever had anybody tell you, if you could only see yourself like I see you? It's the veil we wear. We have a wall in front of us that we can't see who we really are, and so we have all these misconceptions of ourselves that are based in a lot of the belief systems that our parents, and others put upon us, teachers and, ministers and parents and friends and bullies and, all the stories that we, everything we experience in our early lives creates these layers of armor that we're trying to survive. So we shut down some part of us that then no longer gets expressed fully. So really a lot of the work is learning to take those armors off, all those fears and the doubts and the beliefs about ourselves that limit us. So removing all of that so our light can shine. I mean, literally, that's what we're doing, is your light so wants to shine in this planet, especially now, and we need everybody. And so we just like taking off, layers of armor, so that you can be your full self.
Yeah, and that's great. So we have these layers of armor, and we have our soul purpose, and we can sort of work that out. What else is it that people can do to start their own process of being on their soul journey, unwinding their armor, so on their own every day? Is there some or some ways that they can do that or look at themselves differently?
You know, one of the things I like to help people begin to learn, and I call it witness capacity, and it's really it's a perspective taking. It's a little more complex than just, so I'm going to try to make it simple. But it's inability to see ourselves. And so part of what happens if we can't really see who we are, then we imagine that we're much smaller than we have capable. And so a lot of times, women who have this really high ambition, what we're doing is like pushing, forcing ourselves into the world through means that aren't authentic. And so one of the things that we can do is, it does require some level of quietness, of stillness inside, so you can actually hear your voices. But as you are in the world on a daily basis and you're having experiences, listening to these little voices that speak to you and tell you about what that experience is doing for you. And so there's some way of being with each experience that makes it more tangible. So what I would suggest is, especially if you have some friends who know you well, it's actually helpful to have a conversation with these friends and allow them to tell you what they see about you. That the thing you do usually has two sides. One of the side is your gift, and one side is your shadow. And maybe that word isn't common to most people, but the shadow is the thing that you do to cover up your gift. So if you can have your friends tell you about the thing you do, so it's the green light or the thing that you do anytime you enter a room, watch for that thing in settings where you're challenged. And then watch what happens when you do it and someone responds to it in a challenging way. It's kind of a witness capacity. Not sure I explained that well enough, but so when you're in a
sort of watching,
let's say we had an argument.
Yeah, go.
From the outside. Yeah. So if we were to have an argument, and or a conversation that wasn't resolved easily, and I went away uncomfortable, and I was trying to figure out, so what did I do in that conversation that was uncomfortable? I can share that with someone who knows me, who'd say, well, Holly, you do that thing. And I'm like, no, I don't know that thing. And so I would have to listen very openly with vulnerability to hear my friend say, Holly, you do that thing. And I'm like, oh, well, tell me more about that thing. And so I'd hear about the thing, and I would learn about the beauty of it, the gift, and also learn about the challenge in it. And then I would begin to observe myself in different situations when I do that thing and how it actually creates a challenge for me. For me personally, I've had a fair amount of self-doubt about my capacity. You wouldn't think with the credentials I have and the number of experiences I've had that I'd have self-doubt, but that's why I did all that. And so I'm constantly trying to learn and do and sometimes push myself so hard that it ends up kind of in a fiasco. And, my friends will say, Holly, you're doing that thing again. It's like, yeah, you're right, I am. And, so the beauty is that I love to learn and I love to grow. And I'm always looking for some new information or insight, but it actually can be a bit over the top, manic, kind of aggressive at times. And so I've been able to, so I call that witness capacity. So just being able to see ourselves in situations and being open enough to actually allow that. And the key to that is recognizing that each thing that we do that is a blessing and a challenge has served us. So there's a reason for that way of being, and it's not to be judged or dismissed or rejected. It's to be honored and allowed and brought into life. So I've learned a lot about, that way of being, and now have, a much better handle on it.
Yeah. And yeah, I think we all have that side, isn't it, where we really we don't acknowledge our gifts. We always think that we're not good enough in some way. You know, I remember, and you know, when I went up to the high end of corporate, and I remember a girlfriend that I used to go to uni with, you know, saying to me, "But you're so intelligent." I'm like, I don't think I am, like, because there's so many people that are much more intelligent than me. So I would use this reference stick of other people, because of course there's always going to be people more or less if you want to scale things, but always referring to other people. I was never good enough because there were always going to be better people than me.
Right. Yes, that's a great example. And we all have those self-limiting beliefs that we're not good enough in some way, or ready enough. I mean, there's a lot of women, especially, who stay in particular careers or jobs because they imagine there's a possibility they could do something else, but don't feel ready to make the jump or the leap because the fear of risk of losing so much in their lives, or you know, we have so much care about our families and relationships that we put that first. And it doesn't have to be an either or. It's possible to actually have it all in a way that's manageable, not have it all in the way that we used to do it, the way I did it, you know, 20s, 30s, early 40s. But have it all in a way that creates happiness and joy and, you know, abundance and success and accomplishment and contribution and relationship and intimacy and vulnerability and fun. You know, fun and delight are really big on my list. Yeah. It is possible to have all that. And it's not as hard as it seems. It's just really not. It's much simpler than it seems, and it's mostly about perception. So is therefore, like, you know, the journey to start being able to, you know, have it all, and, you know, without the overwhelm and the overdoing and all of that, is just to start becoming aware, being like observer ourselves, get to understand what ourselves are about, and you know, start shifting things that don't quite fit anymore. Yes. So realizing that really everything in life already is on purpose, and the direction that you've been heading has benefited you in significant ways, and there are no mistakes or missteps, that everything really is serving, and to allow the elements of life that felt uncomfortable or feel uncomfortable, and, you know, to stop judging ourselves so harshly for thinking we're not where we should be. That's a big part of what women do generally, and I have done. And knowing that there are things you can do to move further, you know, further in the direction of who you really are, and it's all in perfect timing. You know, it's got to be right timing. So when you're ready to take those steps, the masters will appear, you know, as they say, that when you're really ready, it will, the timing will be right and the synchronicities will start to happen. But if you have this deep longing to be more aligned with who you really are, and it's so strong and so prevalent, then, you know, those are good signs that it is time to do that. But in the meantime, accepting, allowing, you know, not stop judging, and just being more aware of who you are and how you are already contributing to life, and look at the little things that are limiting you. Yeah, I think that's beautiful, that actually really looking at what you're already doing and saying, you know, they're really great, because I think we forget to acknowledge ourselves. I think what you said about completely. We put others first, and we're really concerned about our kids and our partners and our workplaces and all that kind of stuff. And we forget to acknowledge, you know, who we are and what we're already doing in the world, that that is a gift. Yeah. You know, I don't know, I in my 30s and 40s, you know, I would be spending 14 hours a day working or so, and then the domestic stuff. And I raised 4 kids to my own. And I have to say, you're an absolute champion. No, it was ridiculous. That's really what it was. It was ridiculous. And at the end of the day, I'd be like, well, why am I not more blah, blah? You know, why am I not doing more of what I really want to do? Why am I not 5 pounds thinner? Why am I not, you know, it's like, really, Holly? You know, at some point, that's the beauty of growing up and older.
So looking at all the things you weren't doing as opposed to all the things you were doing.
Yeah, instead of like my 2 daughters are the most amazing children on the planet, and I realized that if that were my only gift to the planet, I did a really good job. I did a damn good job. And I've done a lot of really cool, amazing stuff as well, and still doing cool, amazing stuff. And now I'm doing it from a happy place where, okay, this is all I'm going to do today. And that's great. And that's fine. And, yeah, so, you know, I had to overcome some ridiculously ambitious standards that were really rooted in my self-doubt and limiting beliefs about who I was. And, it's definitely worth doing that work.
And so, you know, being an ambitious woman is, like, as you say, there's 2 sides. It's an absolute gift in that all the work that you have done and all the ways you can now contribute to people on their own journey. But, you know, the other side of it was that you went to an extreme to the detriment of yourself and your own happiness. And so then realizing that and being able to bring more balance and more happiness back in, I think that's ultimately all our game is we want to be happy, right?
Yeah. And, you know, and happiness is also derived from contributing. You know, I think that's how many of us become ambitious, is we have this very heartfelt desire to contribute to our families and to our workplaces and to the world. And so that ambition is very real and not to be ignored, because there's it's sourced, but it doesn't have to hurt. It just really doesn't have to hurt. I'm working with, I'm really just the luckiest woman. I'm working with 20 somethings and 70-year-olds these days, and really helping them come into their own power and purpose in very sustainable, you know, source-derived ways. And it's just so much fun to work with that range of people.
Yeah, how awesome. So we're coming to an end now. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with that you haven't shared, or just want to leave them to go with?
You know, I think you said, Lianne, one of the things that does occur in most people is we don't recognize our gifts. And so really having people help you understand that thing you do. So we tend to think of gifts as the talents we might use at work or in our families or whatever. And your gifts are actually much deeper than that, your core powers. And so really digging deep actually helps to bring a sense of awareness about the real reason you came to the planet in this lifetime and what it is you're here to contribute, and actually starts to dissolve some of that doubt and resistance to living a bigger life. And it's a beautiful blossoming process. It's very fun.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I believe you got a free gift for everyone here today.
Yeah, I do. And just because I'm so committed to like bringing more and more people into their own purpose in this lifetime, I created a mini course on Teachable. And it's called Activate Your True Power and Purpose, Moving from Status Quo to Empowerment. And so it's a really quick, easy course that sort of outlines the steps to take to live into your true power and purpose. And they're crucial, practical steps to get clear and stay focused, to move past your fear about living into your purpose-driven life. So I'm so excited to offer that to everybody and hope they can work their way through it. It's pretty quick, probably less than an hour. I think you'll have the link on the...
There'll be a link on the page. Did you want to share the URL?
Yeah, it's hollywoodscoaching.com/summit course, all one word.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and there will be a link as well. So just, for those that that have IT issues, they can still find it.
Yeah. So it's on my website, and it's hollywoodscoaching.com/summit course.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for being here today, Holly.
You're welcome.
You've shared some really valuable insights with us all that we can all actually go and start putting in practice.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lianne. Really enjoyed the time with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you to all our viewers for tuning in to Holly Woods, and we've had a great time with her, and stay tuned for more amazing women. Much love. Bye.
Thank you.